Hey everyone, Adrian here. Welcome back to the Conversations with Adrian podcast. Today, I'm joined once again by Chef Pete Evans. Pete, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me. If you see my hands down here, it's just because I've got my little dog,
Lovely.
dog hanging out with us. So I'm not playing with myself or anything.
No, that's all right.
I'll be patting her.
I'm glad you cleared that up, mate. It's really good to know. People will be wondering what, as if you don't have enough bad press going on. It'll be on the front page of the news next week.
How are you, brother? And thanks for having me too.
Yeah, I'm great, mate. And thanks for coming on the show. I really value your time. I was just looking back. The last time I spoke to you was around this time of the year, a couple of years ago. So 2021-ish, we're kind of in the throes of all the madness of what was going on. So, it's been a wild ride, hey?
It has been what a joy it's been as well. It's ups and downs, ins and outs, thrilling.
Yeah, 100%. You seem to
All
be
of the
taking
all
it
of the
with good
emotions.
stride.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm having the best life, brother. I just had a wonderful surf this morning, and it's just yeah, every day is a gift, and very grateful to be here in this human body, getting to experience it all.
Yeah, I love it. You get out and surf every day, huh?
Most days, yeah. Obviously, technology these days, you can look at the surf cameras before you go and see the surf report for the next week or two. So you know when the swell's coming, what the wind's going to be doing, what the tides are going to be doing. So it's one great use of technology that I love, as is these Zoom recordings as well. But yeah, so I pick and choose. When I know it's going to be decent,
Sure.
average and above, then I'll head out. So yeah, I don't waste my time if it's going to be a shit show, so to speak.
Mm. Have you always been at one with nature, so to speak, or sort of had a draw to nature and all the vibes, surfing and stuff like that? Is that kind of just sort of come back in the last few years, or have you been in the throes of work life where you're in TV land, you're kind of like really busy doing a lot of things all the time, or?
It was actually, I was 14, and up until that point, I didn't really have very little connection with nature that I was consciously aware of. And my brother encouraged me, my older brother Dave, he encouraged me to learn to surf. And I was petrified of the ocean through some past experiences with my father, and which wasn't so pleasurable. So I really had to face a fear in stepping into that quite wild environment, which is the ocean. And it's been the best gift for me so far on this journey. One, to reconnect or to connect to nature in such a beautiful way. And I'm 50 years of age now, so I've been surfing now for 36, 37 years.
Wow.
And it has allowed me to face a lot of fears in that environment, whether it be big waves. And I've consciously, over the last 3.5 decades, sought to conquer that fear by surfing some of the biggest waves that I can handle.
Mm-hmm.
And also at the same time, also facing a huge fear, which was sharks as well. And because I had this underlying fear about sharks, and it could have been due to the Jaws movie or whatever it may be, and the mainstream media painting the sharks out to be such dangerous creatures, which they can be. Obviously, you're in their territory, they're an apex predator.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to spend the rest of my life doing something that I love, which is being in the ocean, and yet being frightened of it at the same time. I wanted to get to a place of neutrality where I knew I was entering a zone that could potentially take my life or injure me, whether it be the waves or the reef or the rocks, or drowning, or the potential shark attacks, or whatever may come from this pursuit of happiness and joy and passion. So I had to consciously face that fear. So scuba diving was a great tool for that, because you get to be under the water for long periods of time, and actually you can pick certain spots in the world where you can go and dive with sharks and get to see them in the natural environment. And obviously they're not hunting 24 hours a day. When you see them in the natural environment, they're just cruising around, and obviously they eat when they need to eat. But for, I'd say, 99.9% of their existence, they're just cruising around. So that was a a beautiful journey to get to that place of neutrality where I can go for a surf and not think about it in the front of my mind. Obviously, sometimes I still think about it. You see a fin pop up next to you, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, what is that? You know, human instinct. You're still in preservation mode. But yeah, so the ocean really has given me a connection to nature, which has expanded from that, from just that locale, which is the ocean, to now my wife and I live in the mountains in far north New South Wales in a rainforest. We have 200 acres that we are stewarding and looking after this land. And this is another totally different adventure. We've got a waterfall on our property and a spring-fed creek. So I'm in there 3 or 4 times a day because I at the moment, the mountain energy is calling me as much as the ocean energy has called me over the last few decades. So I'm experiencing what being in this natural landscape can offer me and what I can offer it in this symbiotic relationship. And it's so beautiful. I mean, the connection that we've had with the not only the flora and fauna over the last few years, and before that when we had another property, it's been so cool. We've got a beautiful diamond python that's made itself part of the family over the last month and is hanging out at our retreat. I saw another big one yesterday where we've got a bird tribe that hangs out with us: magpies, butcherbirds, crows, plover birds, and just witnessing them go through the cycle of life as well. They've just birthed some new little baby magpies and some swallows on our property, and just witnessing that is quite humbling and quite real. And you get to see, I guess, the true nature of reality, you know, that we're all in this cycle of life. Things obviously are eating other things. You watch the birds eating the bugs, you're watching the birds eat other birds, you're watching the snakes eat the dead birds, you're watching the snakes chase for small marsupials and mouse and rats and things like this. And it's, you know, it's sort of
and they watch you.
Yeah, well, of course they do.
They watch you cook up your nice beef backstrap or whatever it is, or your all those sorts of things. So they're probably watching you devour some animals and thinking this is a crazy world to live in. Have you ever seen on Instagram?
Oh, you go.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, it's the one thing with this Zoom, it cuts you out every time you try and interject. Have you ever seen on Instagram Ocean Ramsey? Have you ever watched her with the sharks?
Yeah,
I'm trying to get her on the show to have a little chat. She's just got a documentary out and a few things going on, but she's absolutely like fearless when it comes to grabbing these sharks by the nose and pushing them away, and she's sort of befriended a bunch of them, and they know her when she gets in the water. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I love that, how people have this intuitive passion that they will, you could imagine her where people would be saying, no, what you're doing is dangerous. What you're doing, you're putting your life in risk. But for her, it's her passion. And she's just like, I hear you. I mean, I'm presuming this is probably what goes through her mind. I hear you. I respect your opinion, but this is so important for me. And I believe it's so important for humanity to actually get to witness what that species is like through a different perception and through a different lens, and from the mainstream media and from all of these things. And I was going to say, talking about nature and what the ocean has offered me is such a great perspective on our journey through life. And if you look at the ocean, every day is different. It's not the same. You pull up to the beach and there's an old saying that you'll never catch the same wave twice, because each wave is uniquely different. And the ocean is completely different from minute to minute, from hour to hour, to day. And sometimes you'll go down there, like today, it was a perfect, beautiful morning, offshore winds, glassy conditions, everyone with a smile on their face. It wasn't critical in nature at anything. It was very playful. Whereas you can go next week and it could be wild, woolly storms out there where you're actually putting yourself in a little bit of danger. And then next week, the following week, it could be completely flat where there's no waves. And what that has taught me over the years is that life is a little bit like that. Some days it's a little bit more choppy or turbulent or wild, and you feel not so comfortable in this experience. And then we learn that those feelings, those emotions, that too shall pass, the old saying. And then you'll find some calm days, and then you'll find some days that are just everything's in alignment, like I was talking about this morning. The waves are just perfect, and that's we get to experience that in our human evolution as well. We get to experience it all, and that's what we're here to do, because a lot of people are just looking for this this very calm experience throughout their life. But nature isn't like that. It's constantly changing, it's constantly adapting, and it's constantly trying to find harmony or bring harmony to us. So when we look at our lives and we see these challenging times that we all go through, you know, it just puts things into perspective. This won't be for the rest of my life. This too shall pass. And then I'll ride a new wave of beauty and grace and synchronicity and harmony. And then that will pass. And then something else will come. And like the flat days for surfers, sometimes here on the Northern Rivers, we could go for a month without swell, you know, which drives the surfers a little bit crazy. But if we bring that into our own life, I was having a chat this morning to a fella that I know before I went for a surf, and he's a videographer. He is a wonderful cameraman and puts together great content. And I said, "How are you going, brother?" He goes, "You know what? I've been doing this for the last 10 years, and I feel like there's something more I want to do, but I'm just being patient to let that come up, to let that blossom." Because he goes, "I don't know what I want to do next, but I know there's something, and I don't want to keep doing this for the rest of my life." And that's like learning patience, learning to be still, learning to just trust that the next opportunity or the next flow or the next perception of where the next steps that we take on this journey will arise, because that is who we are, and that is how we evolve in this world.
So true. I was listening to someone talk the other day about also just with the ebbs and flows of life, like you were saying. Like, I think humans, as humans, we don't appreciate that those times of turmoil and sort of living on the edge, so to speak, or having to be put under pressure or to perform or to overcome an obstacle is kind of what we're built for as well. Like, it can't all be just smooth sailing and clear glassy waters like you were explaining this morning. You know, it's you know, if you get into some rough surf and you overcome it, as you were articulating before, it kind of gives you that quiet confidence, that self-assurance that you can get through stormy days.
This is correct. I mean, so many of I guess the new therapies that are emerging, but they're very ancient therapies that are emerging, such as infrared saunas, ice baths, breath work, these types of modalities that can bring about discomfort for us. And what we like to say with our guests that come to the retreat is, if you can find comfort in the discomfort, if you can sit in that ice bath for a minute or 2 minutes, and it will be uncomfortable, but if you can push through that and find some level of comfort in that discomfort, or if you're in the sauna and you're starting to sweat and you're like, geez, I've had enough, but if you can push through that first inclination to get out when things get a little uncomfortable or a lot uncomfortable, you might be surprised at yourself. And it's a great analogy for life. When we have these challenges or these turbulence in our life, or we have that level of discomfort in our life, whether it's financial hardship, whether it's relationship hardship or challenges, whether it's losing loved ones or suffering a diagnosis of ill health or whatever it may be, if we can, the more that we can strengthen that comfort in the discomfort when these challenges do arise in our human experience, then instead of going into a state of fear and panic, fight or flight response, instead, if we can sit with that and go, okay, well, obviously there's a lesson in here for me to learn from. What is that lesson? Instead of just going into victim mode, blaming the government, blaming the financial system, blaming our partner, blaming our children, blaming our parents, blaming our friends, blaming our career choices, whatever it may be. All of these things are an opportunity for us to sit, realize that everything is our manifestation, which is a huge one for people. And I might have chatted to you about this last time we chatted. But I think true sovereignty of our earthly experience comes from radical responsibility and accountability, that we have created everything in our life through the choices that we've made, which has ended up landing us right where we are now. And every decision that we've made, there is no bad decisions. Every decision that we've made is completely perfect for us at this particular point in time. And what we do with that awareness or that conscious knowing or that gnosis, that inner wisdom, is then, can we manifest, which we can, or what do we want to manifest into the future, knowing that we are fully responsible for everything that happens to us because we've created it for us. It hasn't happened externally for us. And that's a big pill for a lot of people to swallow. And if anybody's listening or watching this and this triggers you, it is my pleasure.
I love it. It's that kind of rings true for a lot of things, especially in the last couple of years. But I think when I think about my life, there's been a number of episodes over a lifetime which have caused a situation for me to be sort of like ostracized or to stand out or to be ridiculed or judged or, you know, whatever it may be. And so then externally you're receiving feedback that is like negative and you're thinking to yourself, well, what have I done wrong? Because I thought I was in the right space. And then you're left with the perspective of questioning your own actions or inactions, and you're kind of saying like, why am I doing this? And why would I subject myself to these certain things? So for me, it's when I trace back my life, it's there's been catalysts of those events that have happened all the time. And it was almost like a training grounds for the events that have come in the last couple of years and still are coming, mind you. I mean, it's to walk in your own shoes and like you mentioned the word sovereign before, you know, like it's a difficult path for most, because for some of the ways you're on your own, you're sort of trailblazing to a degree. You're trying to find maybe someone or something or a sign that kind of gives you the indication that you're on the right path. And a lot of it can be quite isolating and lonely. So for me, I actually don't mind being alone. One of the things that the pandemic has taught me is when I went into retreat and isolated and meditated and kind of thought about things for a long period of time, I realized that I didn't mind my own company. Whereas in the past, I would always like seek other people out to go for a coffee or to go for dinner or just to have some sort of person to talk to. Whereas these days I can just, I can go to dinner by myself and I can sit at a cafe for an hour and, just do my own thing. And I'm totally immersed in my own thing. And like, I don't really care, but I wanted to segue to that because a lot of people that would be listening to this would know you from television and all those sorts of things. But then most importantly, or like recently, your outspokenness towards the mandates and the jabs and the COVID bullshit and all that kind of stuff was going on. But I actually saw an article of yours not too long ago. It was about 2016, 2017, and it was a current affair snippet, and it said Pete's at it again, and it was all about your paleo way and how you were destroying the people's lives by giving them misinformation about diet, right? So what a fucking concept, misinformation. It's just like, there's nothing new under the sun. So I wanted to ask you of your perspective of that, because it seems like you've been thrown under the bus in the last couple of years, but it's kind of happened before, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I've created that journey for myself for so many reasons for me to explore. And one of the reasons I think I have explored this is to see what it's like to experience that sort of I don't want to say attacks, but that reality of being a person that has been quite controversial over the years. For some reason, I have attracted that into my life. And part of it, I think one of the reasons that I have is to show people and allow people that it is okay to be judged by other people in a harsh way, if you so see it that way. And that nothing can penetrate, again, I'll use that word, sovereignties. Nothing can penetrate this because, number one, I don't allow it to. And number two is that the more that I guess, lens is focused on what I am sharing into the world, and the more that is attacked, that will help a lot of people on their journey when they have mistrust, or they have doubt, or they have questions about their own journey in this life, and whether it's to do with diet, as you talked about. You know, diet is such a polarizing concept, even in the so-called truth movement and the freedom movement and the sovereign movement. You know, there are people that are vehemently vegan or vegetarian, or people that don't believe that diet influences their body in any way, shape, or form, and that we can, as omnivores, eat anything. And then there's people that are hardcore carnivore. There's people that are paleo. There's people that are keto. There's people that are low carb. There's people that are on an autoimmune paleo protocol. And I think the triggering aspects of dietary principles, especially over the last decade and a half to 2 decades, and they're continuing on, is absolutely perfect, because it's created a debate and conversation about what is it that we should be eating. And instead of phrasing it like, what should we be eating, I like to bring it back to, what is it that human beings have thrived on for most of their evolutionary history, and then bring it back to oneself. What do I need to eat or not eat to fuel my body for where it is on this journey at this particular point in time? And when we start to ask those sort of very simple and basic questions, but very profound questions, then no doubt once you ask the question, the answers are completely within us 100%. We can access that intuition about what we should be eating individually. And if we don't feel like we have access to our own intuition, our gut instinct about what we should be eating, then as human beings, we're so curious, and we have such an ability to be able to go on these adventures. If you believe vegetarianism or veganism is the path for you, then go for it. Go down that path. Try it for a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And if it works for you, fantastic. You've found something that's worked for you at this particular point in your journey. But be open that I'm open to change if at any point along the journey that no longer serves me and I start to deteriorate, if that happens for you. Same thing with anybody wanting to adopt a carnivore approach, which is a meat and seafood only diet. If you feel like that resonates with you and you've seen other people create great health through that, why not try it? Try it for a week, try it for a month, try it for 6 months, try it for a year. And again, just be open to being able to change your beliefs and philosophy if at any point on that journey that it doesn't feel like it's serving you anymore. Same thing for paleo, same thing for people that just want to eat junk food and convenience food and Uber Eats. Go along that journey. If at any time that you feel like it's not serving you, then we have all of these other options available to us. It's when we become dogmatic and pig-headed about certain beliefs, and our beliefs are running our programs, our patterns. You talked about how you were in this pattern of over the last few years, and prior to that you were seeking certain things to be around people. Then you've experienced what it's like to feel comfortable in your own skin, to be alone. You know, this is part of the human experience, is we get to wear as many hats as we choose to, whether it be dietary principles, whether it be career choices, whether it be relationships with friends or loved ones or partners, sexual or sensual relationships. And we get to pick where we choose to live. We get to pick where we choose to travel to, budget depending, obviously. So we have one of the best lessons that I ever had was in an ayahuasca ceremony probably about 5 years ago. And in one of those experiences, or one of those journeys that I had, it was over 4 nights, and I sat with ayahuasca for 4 nights in a row. And in one of those nights, I got to experience the true nature, what I believe of our human experiences is we have unlimited possibilities available to us. And that can be very overwhelming for people to grasp until they've experienced it. But basically, every single possibility exists for us to explore if we choose to. Human beings, we can explore what it's like to not judge somebody. We can experience what it's like to not care if anybody's judging us. We can experience unconditional love for somebody else, and can we experience unconditional love for ourselves, from other people and from ourselves? Can we give ourselves unconditional love from myself to myself? Or can we go into destructive relationships where we are physically abusive, emotionally abusive? As human beings, we have the capacity for all these different spectrums of experience, and we're witnessing that on a day-to-day level play out throughout the world, whether it be wars, whether it be rape, whether it be volunteer work, whether it be charity, whether it be saving somebody's life, whether it be listening to somebody when they're going through hardships, whether it's guiding someone through those difficulties. So the human experience is everything. And when we acknowledge that we are capable of everything, then we have unlimited possibilities in this journey to explore everything. And I'm not saying you explore to be violent towards anybody, but it is in our capacity to do so, as we've witnessed around the world. So with those unlimited possibilities, what can we do with ourselves is anything that we choose to. And obviously, fundamentally, we are beings of divine and unconditional love. And I do honestly believe that is one of the things that we're here to remember in our individuated journeys here in this planet, and hopefully collectively one day that we come to remember that unconditional love is our default. It's just that we've forgotten it. And how do we get to that place once again? And for some, getting to that place will be through those journeys or adventures of extreme destruction in their life. Loss of a family member, not being able to tell that person that you love them before they passed on. All of these different ways. So yeah, it's for me, those, I don't even like to call it negative articles that you referred to, because I don't see them as negative. I just see them as part of the journey. And for some reason, I have been blessed with the ability to be that person, or one of these people that have that sort of direct opposition in the mainstream media world and the medical world and whatever world it may be. And that it is okay for me to be me, and it cannot hurt me on my journey. So what will that allow other people to do? People that are scared of sharing their voice for fear of ridicule or judgment from friends, family, society. What can that allow other people to do? And I don't do it for that reason, because I do it for a very selfish reason. When I discovered dietary philosophy, which is called paleo or ketogenic, intuitively, I knew this was something that I needed to share for myself. Whether anybody took it on board and started to investigate and study for themselves, that was not part of my expectations from me releasing this information. And it wasn't my information. I'd learned it from doctors and other people that had been studying this for a very long time. But I always do things from a very selfish point of view, because I have to follow my gut instinct. And when it came to understanding that dietary principle, there was no question that I was going to share that. When COVID came around, there was no question that I was going to voice my opinion. And it wasn't to help people. It wasn't to stop people from taking the vaccine. The only reason I did it for was purely selfish reasons, because it felt like my path. And if I was to deny that path in me, then I may suffer some sort of dis-ease in my human experience. And it's that simple. When you trust your intuition, which I did through that period, even though it was a financial ended up being quite a financial, it cost me financially. That's probably the simplest way. But I had to witness that. I had to experience that. I had to let go of that to, again, readjust my path from a very different financial perspective. And here we are. My wife and I have opened a beautiful wellness and cooking retreat in the rainforest, and I couldn't be happier. And I possibly wouldn't have done that without jumping through some of these hoops that, by speaking my voice, allowed me to lose some things, but then to readjust and redefine and recreate a new journey for myself. And the thing that has taught me really fundamentally is letting go of attachment to property, to identity, to business, to holding on to security and safety. My wife and I just decided last week to actually put our retreat up for sale after 3 magnificent years of sold out retreats, because we're looking for, we're like, we've done that. We've ticked all of those boxes and we have loved this experience, but maybe it's time for somebody else to come along and birth this retreat into, so they can tick their boxes, and then we can then have space and capacity to see what we both want to create next. Because sometimes when we create a business and we continue on that sort of in that pattern, that's all very well and good, and some people love that. For me, I like to, and my wife likes to, experience new adventures and new situations that can hopefully challenge us, and for us to let go of something very safe and secure. Can we let go and trust, because we both feel like this is, in the next 6 months to a year, it's the time for us to then rebirth something new, and we don't even know what that is yet, but it's exciting for us.
Yeah, no, I think the world has a way of like forcing you to recalibrate, and I think what I'm hearing from your story is that you could think and feel a certain way. So like you know that just intuitively this paleo thing is something that you need to do for yourself, but not only that, you need to teach others because it's a part of your calling. But then if you add into the mix some of the other little directions that you may have taken with, for example, your TV series and all those sorts of things, then perhaps COVID comes along and says, look, we understand you've gone along this path, but I think you need to recalibrate and do a couple other little things which you're not living to your fullest potential. And so it causes you that disruption. And then you kind of think, well, there must be another way. And some people capitulate and go back to the old ways and just think this is too uncomfortable, like we we're talking about before. And then others go, you know what, I've kind of dealt with this hardest part of it. Now it seems like I got through it. And now there's almost like a liberation and a sense of freedom, because that detachment is like a theme of the last 4 years is detachment, letting go of ego, letting go of attachment to things and people and places and all that kind of stuff. And I think that is scary, but it's also liberating at the same time, because you're faced with a myriad of opportunities. And I guess that now you're in a tough position of like, which path do I choose? So, which is that's abundance, right? It's kind of like there's no scarcity or limitation. That's kind of an abundant opportunity that you have to go down this path or that path, and just absorb that journey for what it is and what those moments are meant to teach you, and those life lessons at that time, and then take that through the next phase of your life, But one of the things I'll add to that, Pete, is like from watching you on what was it, My Kitchen Rules and all that kind of stuff, like on a nightly basis, and then to seeing you in this environment, like I think people would find that quite polarizing initially, because they had never heard you speak out about anything or have an opinion about something. Well, obviously your paleo is that sort of avenue there, but on the other hand, it is quite attractive. Do you find that in terms of like you're speaking out, you ruffle a few feathers, but at the same time, it is quite attractive in the sense that people will gravitate towards you because there's another side of Pete Evans that none of us got to experience. And I think COVID shut down and closed a bunch of doors, but it's opened up opportunities like this. Like I would never have thought that I'd have an opportunity to speak to someone like you, ever. But COVID gave me this opportunity. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, 100%. I think the last few years it's been such a beautiful time for creating new connections. 100%. I've witnessed over the last 3 years and more that so many beautifully hearted people, very intelligent people as well, forming these new relationships. It's like the mycelium network, of the fungi and the mushrooms, that everything starts to connect. And through the last few years, that is what has materialized, in my opinion, is these beautiful connections from people that possibly might have stayed in their own career path and their own identity. But what it has enabled and allowed to happen is nearly this cross-pollination of people from different fields, all forming these beautiful new strands and these new connective conversations that seem to be the basis or the building blocks for the new humanity, where corruption, greed, control, manipulation, deceit, scarcity, lack, doom and gloom, fear have been sort of the overarching themes over the last however many centuries or millennia, that what is now being formed through all of those themes that I was talking about that came to a climax over the last 3 years, and potentially will still head in that direction. But what's coming through this at the moment is what I believe is the new foundational framework for humanity, where connection, reconnection to nature, deep human heartfelt conversations, new systems are emerging, new ways to communicate are emerging, new information is now, I've equated it to a perfect recipe, where what's happened over the last 3 years is all of these individual ingredients have popped up. A lot of the doctors that have been censored, a lot of the people that have spoken out that are not generally in the doctor's field, but other fields of vocations have spoken out, and they're connecting, and they're the ingredients that are going into this pot. And the water has gone into there, and the temperature is just turned on, and now we're going to witness all of these ingredients start to merge and fuse into this delicious broth or soup or recipe that it might take a lifetime or 2 lifetimes or 3 lifetimes for it to get to a point where humanity will start to drink from it. But what I can tell at the moment is the aroma is starting to waft around the world, and people are noticing that there may be a different path than the path that we have believed that we needed to abide by and adhere to. So this beautiful recipe is starting to brew, and we can smell it. We know that it's there. And how quickly will humanity start to drink from it and nourish themselves from it? Again, that comes down to individual free choice and free will. So it can't be administered and force-fed to everybody. People need to get to that deliciousness on their own accord, and some will and some won't. That's the nature of reality. It's free will. So I'm extremely optimistic about what has transpired over the last 3 years, because I can see, I don't like to say that I can predict the future, because that's quite egocentric, but it definitely, everything's in harmony. And what I'm seeing is a huge shift at the moment. It may not be according to other people's timelines out there, because people want instantaneous fixes. And I'll use the analogy of when somebody changes their diet, they want the magic pill. They want to feel better within a week of changing their diet or a month of changing their diet. And I always put it back to, well, how many decades did it take you to create the body that's overweight, inflamed, with chronic disease? Did that take a week to develop? Did it take a month to develop? Did it take a year? Did it take decades for you to constantly keep eating foods that weren't nourishing for you, alcohol that was poisoning your body, this, that, and the other? The quick fix that a lot of people are after, especially in this world, is, once we look at the history of humanity, we've been playing this game for centuries, if not thousands of years. And how long is it going to take to create that new humanity of that unconditional love, that trust, that surrender, that detachment, that connection, all of these beautiful facets that we have inside of us and each of us can connect to? Will it take a month? Will it take a year? Will it take decades? Will it take centuries? Or will it take millennia? Who knows? But what I do know is an individual can opt in or opt out of the old system into their new system by changing their diet, changing what they drink, changing how they sleep, what they watch, what they listen to, who they interact with, ending old relationships that potentially cannot be saved or nurtured or loved where it's causing disease. We all have that ability to change our own path and start drinking in and creating our own recipe that is absolutely delicious for us. You know, may not be delicious for other people out there, and that's fine because we're all unique. But the invitation is there to start creating your own recipe for life with the ingredients that will give you the vitality and the energy to thrive in whatever is unfolding in this reality. And for me, I'll give you my personal recipe or ingredients for life is wonderful food, great water, wonderful sleep, beautiful relationships with my children and my wife and with friends, as much time in nature, getting that sunlight onto my body, doing the things that bring me joy, whether it be surfing, skating, skiing, wakeboarding, all of these sports that put a smile on my face. I'm going to go see Robbie Williams on Thursday night because he's one of my favorite entertainers, and I'm taking my kids and Nick, my wife, and my ex-partner as well. We're going as a group to see Robbie Williams, and I'm already so freaking excited. I don't usually go to concerts because I'm usually quite underwhelmed, but I've seen Robbie Williams 3 times and best concerts I've ever seen. And it's finding these, we all know what they are individually for us, the things that bring us joy, that put a smile on our face. The more we can put those ingredients into our recipe for life, the things that bring us joy. And for some, it's dancing, for some, it's singing, for some, it's writing, for some, it's gardening, for some, it's helping out, volunteering, for some, it's reading a book, for some, it's walks in the parks, walks in the beach, swimming in the pool, whatever it may be. If we can do those things that bring us joy as often as we can, even if it's just once a week, even if it's once a month, even if it's once a day, you know, everybody is different and their time constraints are very unique and different. So there's no one recipe that fits everybody, but we can take some of these elements or these ingredients and start to incorporate them. Like if you're wanting to change your diet, some people can do it in a split second and change everything. Clear out their pantry, go shopping, fill up their fridge and pantries with all the healthy food in the world. And for others, that's just too much, too big a step. So maybe just change one meal a week that doesn't have dairy and gluten in it and see how you feel. And maybe the next week, try it twice. And if that's enough for you, just continue twice a week until you get the inclination to maybe do it 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. You know, there's no recipe that I can give you because you are an individual and you need to work out your own ingredients and your own recipe for the way that you walk through this journey of life. So so be careful of gurus telling you how to do it. I'd say, because that guru they might find what works for them, but it can be a complete disaster for you. So always have a question mark over anything that everybody anybody tells you to do, whether it be your loved ones, whether it be the experts on television, whether it be the government, whether it be your best mate that's just discovered ayahuasca or whatever it may be, put a question mark over everything and put a question mark over what I'm talking to you about today, and have a healthy skepticism. And if things resonate with you, fantastic. If things trigger you, fantastic. If things just are completely like, that guy is a crackpot, he doesn't know what he's talking about, fantastic. You have your opinions, you have your beliefs, you have your patterns, so be it. I'm not here to judge you, and if you judge me, so be it. I won't be offended.
No, look, I think I love what you said. I guess that's what you've described as a journey of self-discovery. And I think, having that sort of healthy amount of skepticism to at least question a few things, to go like, why do I do the things that I do? Why do I think the way I think? Why do I behave the way I behave? Why do I respond to food the way that I respond to these foods? So like, there's so much of a self-inquiry. And I think that that's, just one of the themes that is continuous in the last few years, especially, is kind of like just to have some self-inquiry and just to see whether there's a connection between this heart and mind, and whether that's something you can go down. What I loved about the last couple of years was the exploration of the darker parts of myself. That was the most fearful and confronting, but also the most liberating, again, in terms of being able to face the darker parts of me that I was felt guilty and shamed, and lots of those ill emotions over. But I love what you said about the like, you've done something for such a long period of time, don't expect the results to be overnight. I mean, when I coach people on any kind of fear or limiting belief or anything they want to overcome, I go like, you're a professional at hanging shit on yourself. You've been doing it for 45 years. So just, peel back the layers. And a lot of people's realities have been crumbling down over the last couple of years. And that can be sort of, painful, but then also, there's a pleasurable side of it. So we have to meet people where they're at, though, right, Pete? Like in terms of your evolution, you're at a certain point. And I think that it's easy to kind of look at someone like yourself and go, I'm comparing my chapter 1 to Pete's chapter 20, right? So it's something that I find that I've had to really sort of dial things back and just meet people where they're at. But I love the fact that this mass awakening is happening in the last couple of years, which is attracting people like you in my life that I can kind of gravitate towards and learn from, because I love learning and being an open sponge. Hated school, but I loved learning. So that it's a bit weird.
Me too.
Before I let you go, Pete, I'm curious to know, because I'm interviewing a bunch of people around the world, and it's just such an exciting time for me to have this opportunity. And I want to acknowledge you for just saying yes, because you could do anything today, but you decided to talk to me for an hour. So I appreciate all of that. But who are you talking to lately, or who have you talked to that is inspiring you, or you kind of have that kind of, fuck, I can't believe I'm talking to this person kind of moment?
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah,
to be honest
really?
with you. Famous, not famous, like the fella today at the car park, the videographer. I just go surfing with him. I didn't even know his name. I had to ask his name, even though we've surfed together maybe 30 times, like not together, but he's been in the water, and we always have a little chat when we're out there. And somebody that encounter today, I never put that down to coincidence or anything. It's just like, okay, I'm at a location, this person is in that perfect position for us to have a 5-10 minute conversation. I never underestimate those encounters in my life. I nearly view them, I don't want to say higher than having a podcast with someone, because I also am so grateful that I get to connect with people as well on this level. But when we can remove the expectation or the notion that just because somebody is famous, they have more to share than somebody that isn't, I think that's a trap that we can fall into. So, to answer your question, everybody inspires me through their story that they share. I mean, this fella today, he was sharing his story. He's in that place of, I want to create a new path for myself. Like, what a beautiful thing for that man to share, that we're not even very close, because I didn't even know his name.
Mm-hmm.
But he was open enough to share with me that a huge decision that he's contemplating at the moment, and I don't take that lightly. That's a huge opening and surrendering and voicing somebody's goals, dreams, and reality. So that to me, I have a big smile on my face after an encounter like that, going, how special was that we got to converse in that, and I got to share a little bit of my perception on where we are as well. And maybe something that I've said will integrate with something that he's going through at the moment, or vice versa. I never shut down those encounters with people. And I often say it to the guests at the retreat, it's no coincidence that 8 perfect strangers have chosen to be here at this retreat at exactly the same time. And I always encourage the guests to be very open with their senses to anything that is said from one guest to another or to themselves over this weekend, because that could be exactly what they're here for, instead of all the beautiful treatments and offerings that we provide. It actually could be that offhanded conversation over dinner with a complete stranger that's at the retreat at the same time, that may just plant the seed that takes that person's journey in such a unique way, and vice versa. And same thing for me when the guests come. I'm always observing. I'm always listening. I'm not closed off to think that I know it all, and I'm always receptive to sort of listening in on conversations to see if there's anything that resonates with me that could be planted as a seed for my potential journey as well. Because when we close ourselves off, even if it's mainstream media, I don't watch mainstream media anymore because it's all nonsense. Once we close ourselves off to differing voices, and it's why I tend to watch and look at all aspects of life, from spiritual books to science fiction books to biographies to mainstream media to alternative media, to what my children say, to what my wife says, to what my mother says, to what different members of my family say. I'm open to all conversations because I never feel like I am above or beneath anything anybody has to share. So that could be a really that could be an invitation for you and your listeners, is just be open to all, because you never know where these nuggets of wisdom and truth and seeds may be planted. And as my good mate Trevor Hendy would say, you never, it's always from the places that you don't expect it to come that the true alchemy happens. Where you expect it to come, generally it doesn't come. Watching Alex Jones or this, that, and the other, or whatever it may be that you're watching, it could be something completely left field that you've already dismissed and out of hand. And all of a sudden you hear something come up or see something and you're like, got it. Got it. Because I want to detach from that and not listen to that. I've closed myself off from certain things. But if I completely stay open to all and have my boundaries, then you never know what may come.
So true. Hey, Pete, you're a great guy, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been great to connect again. If there's listeners watching and listening to this that probably don't know who you are, I mean, there's a new person born every day that's being exposed to this for the first time. Where should they go to find out more about your work, about your retreats while you're still running them? You've got tons of cookbooks. Like, there's so much to Evolve TV, which I've been getting into on a regular basis, which is excellent. So where would they go?
PeteEvans.com, and I've got a new recipe platform launched yesterday called healthyeveryday.com. So if you're looking for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of recipes and meal plans that are all dairy and gluten-free, healthyeveryday.com. It's a subscription-based program. It's $50 per year, and you'll get access to a wealth of information that may or may not help you on your journey.
Lovely. Okay, mate. Thanks again. I appreciate you. And until we talk again, have a great day.
Love you, brother. Thanks, everybody, for listening and for viewing. Until we catch up once again. Love you all. See ya.
See you, mate.